Howdy gamers, let's talk about the runes for Quinn top lane. The few options that she has does shift depending on the matchups that she's playing pretty heavily. I'm not going to touch on like runes for Quinn ADC as she's just not played and she's just worse version of like Draven in most cases. The reason she really functions in the top lane is because she can beat down melee champions, especially where she has her ultimate which lets her move around the map, so she doesn't have to run a teleport. She can run a combat summoner spell, usually a defensive one in either barrier or cleanse, depending on her matchup. So the keystones that I think are fine on Quinn is press the attack, electrocute, and then phase rush. The most common one being press the attack and the most generally useful. With press the attack, whenever you hit an enemy champion with 3 consecutive basic attacks, you deal 40 to 180 based on your level bonus adaptive damage, and then also expose them so they take percentage increased damage from all sources for 6 seconds. So you basically are just increasing your own damage, and where you're trying to combo this with Harrier as well, and where it deals adaptive damage whenever you auto attack 3 times, it becomes really effective against any melee champion as you're able to auto them and then auto them at least twice for a CS, and then the third auto is a bigger punish, and then in combination with your abilities, once you proc press the attack, then you can spin the E and Q on them, and therefore just dealing more damage in your full combo. And where melee champions, they're usually having armor, but then where it deals adaptive damage, it's not going to be dealing physical damage to them. It's going to be dealing magic damage, and then you're just adding to the damage values that you're dealing to them, and then the resistances doesn't help as much. So they have to get a lot more items earlier to withstand Quinn. And with that, it will also help you in 2v2 situations because you're exposing the enemy, therefore increasing the damage that your jungler deals. And whenever you're roaming to other lanes, you're also going to be increasing the damage that your soul lane or the laner that you're ganking deals. So it's a really useful laning tool. And then the functionality also transitions into whenever you start playing with your team as well, whether it be your jungler or whenever you're ganking for your mid or bot lane. I think you want to run press the attack into matchups where mostly just tank matchups, because you're going to be getting the better damage values against them. And then since it puts you in the precision tree, you're also going to get the damage increase from cut down. With cut down, you deal 5 to 15% more damage to champions based on how much more maximum health they have than you. And the bonus damage scales up linearly against enemies with 10 to 100% more max health than you. So basically just more damage to tanks. And that's really what you're looking to play Quinn into. Champions like Shin, Ornn, Singe, Renekton, etc., where they need to be building tank items, but even if they do, it's not going to help them as much comparatively. And then the percentage damage increase that you get with cut down is going to go a lot further against them. Against bruiser champions such as Irelia, Akali, etc., a coup de grace is going to be giving you better value, as those champions aren't going to be building a lot of max health, and they're not going to have a lot of health from their runes and from their levels gained. So with coup de grace, you deal 8% more damage to champions who are below 40% health. So this lets you get the better of them in an all-in. It also lets you finish them off whenever you have a laning advantage where you've built up enough autos against them and then you're trying to run them down or push them out of lane. With coup de grace on an 80 carry champion such as Quinn 2, the 8% damage increase needs to be meaningful, but since Quinn's auto attacks in combination with her passive and her Q is always going to have enough, you're always going to have sources of damage for that damage increase, versus a champion who would only function on burst. They would usually spend all their burst to get the enemy champion below 40% health, and then they wouldn't really have any damage to increase with coup de grace. But with Quinn, since she has her auto attacks, the passive and her Q, the damage increase goes a lot further than it would with other champions. For the other runes that I kind of skipped over, Overheal is going to be giving you an excess shield for your lifesteal. So since you're building Bork first in most cases too, in combination with Doran's Blade, it's going to give you more effective HP whenever you're trading onto the enemy. And since you're usually moving past the minion wave to auto attack the enemy champion, you're going to be taking minion damage, but then Overheal is basically just going to be blocking that minion damage. And if the enemy champion retaliates any damage onto you, Overheal is also going to help you block some of that. That utility also scales into the mid to late game, because whenever you push out waves, you gain the shield. So whenever you approach for a gank or invade the jungle, etc., you just have more effective HP to play with because of this shield. So functions as Pretty similar to Press the Attack, functions as a strong laning tool, and then transitions into the mid and late game with extra utility. For the third rune, your only good option really is Alacrity, where you only want to be building like Blade of the Rune King and then Berserker Greaves for your attack speed, and then the other attack speed can come from like lesser sources from the items such as like Sanguine Blade or Storm Razors. Alacrity is going to go really far as you just get more auto attacks with it as it gives you more attack speed, and it's a bigger reward for like winning lane. The attack speed obviously just going to help you with your auto attacks, and then with taking turrets in the top lane or in the lane that you gank, so just more damage. It's more auto attacks for an AD carry, really good. Nice. For the secondary runes, I think if you're running this, and if you're running a defensive summoner spell such as Cleanse or Barrier, which I think you should be on Quinn top, into the Bruiser or tank matchups that you would want to run Press the Attack, I think that your best bet is Sorcery second with Nimbus Cloak and Absolute Focus. Normally, an AD carry would want to run Gathering Storm versus Absolute Focus as they don't get enough levels, but since Quinn's a solo laner, she can get enough levels so long that you continue to side lane past like 15 minutes. With Absolute Focus, while you're above 70% HP, you gain bonus Adaptive Force, which is going to be attack damage for Quinn based on your level. And then with that, it's really easy for Quinn to be above 70% HP because she'll have the range advantage in the matchups. She'll also have the shield from Overheal, and then she also has the lifesteal from her natural itemization. So you get really good values out of Absolute Focus, and she's one of the few champions really in the game that can make good use out of it. More importantly, with Nimbus Cloak, after you cast a summoner spell, you gain a movement speed increase that lasts for 2.5 seconds and allows you to pass through units. The movement speed increases more the longer the cooldown of the summoner spell that you cast. So with this, in combination with Barrier or Cleanse that you're running, or even Ignite, it's going to give you way more utility than I think you can get from other secondary runes for Quinn top lane, as the extra movement speed is so valuable, especially in the top lane where top lane is such a long lane. And with Quinn, you can have a lot of movement speed in your ult, but once you're on top of someone, you're just like a normal AD carry with no gap closer. So the extra movement speed has the offensive utility of letting you run down the lane opponent if you're beating them. It has the neutral utility in which it will help you dodge skill shots or reposition whenever the enemy champion gets on top of you, or they pull you into you, or if you're getting ganked. And then it has the defensive utility as if you're completely caught out, it will help you either cleanse and then run to safety, use your barrier, run to safety, or flash and then actually get away, because of the extra movement speed offered is just giving you way more distance away from the enemy. And again, since top lane is such a long lane, the value of it is even higher. So I really do like Nimbus Cloak. It's so good on every AD carry, and Quinn's no exception, but she is an exception in the sense that she could be played top lane, and since you're in that lane with a combat summoner spell, this goes even further. Like, the value is just so much higher. You do have options in the resolve tree with something like, I suppose, bone plating and overgrowth. Bone plating is good into melee champions, but since Quinn has a way to disarm like every single melee champion, I don't really see the value in this versus just having the more movement speed to get away from them or to have control over them. Like, maybe there's a few exceptions of champions that could like dash onto you, such as Yasuo, Camille, etc. And bone plating is going to be negating their initial burst onto you, because those champions have abilities that let them get onto you. Camille's E onto the wall, and then Yasuo can just dash through minions on command. With bone plating, after you take damage from an enemy champion, the next 3 spells or attacks you receive from them deal 30 to 60 damage less, and it's on a 45-second cooldown. So they're not going to be dashing on you every 45 seconds, but when they do, you have more effective HP. In combination with Overheal, they really do have to get through. They have to deal like 150 damage extra just to be damaging your actual HP pool. And then once they do so, you're going to have lifesteal too. And you have your E to get away from them. So you have lots of tools and more effective HP to play with to negate those champions' advantages against you. Because if they can get onto you, then bone plating gains a lot of value. And then with bone plating, since you're in the resolve tree, your best option is probably Overgrowth. Unflinching might not be bad. With Unflinching, after you cast a summoner spell, you gain 15% tenacity and slow resist for 10 seconds. and an additional 10% tenacity and slow resist for each summer spell on cooldown. With this, again, in combination with Ignite, Cleanser, Barrier in the top lane, gives you extra survivability potentially. But it's harder to make use of Unflinching, as the 15% tenacity and slow resist like isn't felt that hard. But it could be useful. You should consider it. With Overgrowth, you absorb life essence from monsters and enemy minions that die near you, permanently gaining 3 maximum health for every 8. When you've absorbed 120 monsters or enemy minions, you gain an additional 3.5% maximum health. So this just gives you about a ruby crystal for free. And in combination with Overheal and Bone Plating again, you just have more effective HP to play with, especially at the start of a fight. So since you're in the resolve tree, Overgrowth is going to be generally your more useful option, but there might be matchups in which you can get pretty good value at Unflinching. And when you can, like, probably just try it out. You also have the option of Inspiration Second with like Free Boots Biscuits. This is bad on AD carries in the bot lane, so I think it's just even worse in the top lane. Quinn's really good at using boots early. On your first back, if you have like 2 longswords and boots, the enemy's in a really bad spot. Even better if you have a Vamp Scepter, longsword, and boots. So I think Magical Footwear is really misguided on this champion. Biscuits don't help you in lane. They're going to give you a little bit of HP regen, like 50 or something, and then extra mana. Quinn doesn't need the extra mana, and then you delay your boots. But then you could save the cost of boots, which is 300, but both Biscuits and Free Boots put together, I don't think outweigh just Nimbus Cloak by itself. And then if you add Absolute Focus to that, I just don't see it, man. So delaying your boots makes your laning phase inevitably worse. And then saving on the cost of boots doesn't really help you spike at a time in which you otherwise would. Because with your boots or without them, you're going to be moving around the map fast enough with your ult. And then in fights, having just the boots of speed or Berserker Greaves is going to be, you're going to get them about the same timings anyways. And then you're not really missing out on damage because of it, because your itemization is so flexible, in which you could build a crit cloak or longswords at the timing in which you'd be completing Berserker Greaves versus sitting on Free Boots or just having the 300 gold saved from Free Boots. So I just really don't like that on Quinn. I think it's really anti-synergistic with how the champion functions. I think it's really bad on most AD carries. And since you're playing in the top lane, like, missing out on Nimbus Cloak feels so much worse than saving 300 gold on boots. For the rune shards, I think your best bet is going to be attack speed, adaptive force, and then depending on your matchup, you want to switch the resistance. So if you're playing into an AD matchup, obviously you want the armor. And if you're playing into a AP matchup, champions like Mordekaiser, Rumble, etc. in the top lane, then you want the magic resist. But most of the time it's going to be the armor. So that's what I think about the press the attack page into bruisers and tanks. I think that you do have the option to run Electrocute in just like into squishier champions that you can have lethals on. So it's not many matchups in the top lane. It would be like really, basically like when they're putting other like carry champions in the top lane that don't belong there. So like other AD carries in the top lane, like Vayne, Lucian, even like a Jace, Electrocute would be really good against them because they're not going to have as much HP from their levels compared to other top laners. If you're playing into like the supports top lane, like Sona, Soraka, maybe even a Bard, Electrocute's probably going to be better, as having more burst against them is going to go a lot further than having something like press the attack. If you're killing them in lane, especially if you're running something like Ignite plus Electrocute, those champions just don't have enough HP to really withstand it. So with Electrocute, hitting an enemy champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities within 3 seconds deals bonus adaptive damage based on your level and off your bonus AD, and it's only on a 25-second cooldown. So anytime you would use like your EQ auto, that's an Electrocute proc, and it's just more damage that you otherwise would be dealing. Cheap Shot's an interesting option for Quinn, as it damaging a champion with impaired movement or actions deals 10 to 45 based off your level true damage, and it's only on a 4-second cooldown. Jeez. And with this, you have multiple ways to proc it. In your E, I'm not sure if the Q does it, but I'm pretty sure it does. And then with your Blade of the Rune King slow, then potentially with the Storm Razor slow. So with Cheap Shot, you could add to the damage that you're dealing in your burst. So it would just add to your trades. You could also run Taste of Blood, as if you're playing into these ranged matchups top lane, again, such as Vayne Lucian, and the burst is more important, and staying at higher amounts of HP is more important, then Taste of Blood is going to help you whenever you're taking small trades against the enemy. With Taste of Blood, you heal whenever you damage an enemy champion based on your level, and then it's only on a 20-second cooldown. So with this, it's going to work really well with your lifesteal and then help you just be at higher amounts of HP at more stages of the lane, therefore just giving you better lane states potentially. But you do miss out on a lot of damage from Cheap Shot. With Sudden Impact, like, yes, you can make use out of it with the E, but the 7 lethality in those cases is like kind of whatever compared to the Cheap Shot damage. For the third rune here, you're choosing how you build up the bonus attack damage. I think with Quinn top, your best option is going to be with Ghost Poro or with Eyeball Collection. I think Eyeball Collection is completely fine. Ghost Poro, you have to place wards to build up the bonus attack damage. With Eyeball Collection, you have to get kills or assist, but it's a lot of what Quinn's looking to do is either kill her lane or roam to another lane. So I think Eyeball Collection is completely fine. And then since you're in the domination tree, the fourth row is about like getting unique takedowns and then building up the effects of these runes based off the unique takedowns you have. So with Ravenous Hunter, you heal for a percentage of damage dealt by your abilities. And then with Relentless Hunter, you gain out of combat movement speed. I think both of these are about your best options, as Relentless Hunter is going to help you move back to lane faster and then move to other lanes faster. Ravenous Hunter doesn't give you that good of value because it's based off the damage you deal with your abilities. Even though like you can get an okay amount of healing from it, I think Relentless Hunter is just going to be more generally useful, especially where you don't have teleport in the top lane. Having that extra movement speed to come back to top lane helps a lot. Having the extra movement speed to move to other lanes just is way more synergistic with how Quinn's kit functions in general. You do have to build up the out of combat movement speed, but Quinn's not a champion who builds boots and mobility. So I think it's completely fine, as you are going to be building it up, and even at the later stages of the game, it's still useful. So still a really solid rune. And then I wouldn't even change the secondary runes, as Nimbus Cloak and Absolute Focus are just so valuable. Still giving you bonus AD and then giving you the extra utility of the movement speed, offensive and defensively, depending. But yeah, so don't run Electrocute into like tank matchups. It's really just for like when there's non-meta champions in the top lane that are carries that like don't have enough behind their base levels to really survive. And then when you add this burst to Quinn's kit in combination with an ignite, you just ruin those champions so long that like you land a proper combo on them. For the final keystone, I think Phase Rush is an okay option. Phase Rush is really only useful at a higher MMRs, I think, as the extra movement speed is more valuable there, and in most matchups, even if the enemy gets onto you, Phase Rush is going to be doing about the same thing that Nimbus Cloak wants to be doing, but in a different manner. As with Phase Rush, hitting an enemy champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities within 4 seconds grants you bonus movement speed based on your level and 75% slow resist. The movement speed increase is increased to 30 to 50% for melee champions, so you lose some value there, but it's not that bad. And Phase Rush is also only on a 15-second cooldown, so I'm not sure the matchups in which you would want to run Phase Rush on Quinn. I would think it would be against champions that could slow you, that press the attack doesn't already beat them, and Nimbus Cloak like wouldn't beat as well. So really the only thing that comes to mind would be like maybe something like Gnar, but even then it's really weird because you have to make use of that slow resist, and then you also have to be gaining utility by running the enemy champion down when you're using offensively to make up for the damage missed from press the attack, but not only from press the attack, but from the either coup de grace or cut down as well. So it's really hard in my head to do that. With Phase Rush, it would put you in the sorcery tree, and then you have good options in Nullifying Orb or Nimbus Cloak. I think Nimbus Cloak should be your go-to if you're playing into an AP matchup, again, such as like Rumble, Mordekaiser. Nullifying Orb's really strong. If the enemy has a Karthus jungle, for example, then Nullifying Orb's really strong. I would still go with Absolute Focus, and then I suppose Gathering Storm. As with Phase Rush, I think you'd be playing more defensive in general and be looking to scale. So something like Scorch wouldn't be giving you like crazy values and just wouldn't be synergistic with how you're trying to play the game. Water walking might be okay, as it would help you move from like top lane all the way to bot lane even faster. It would also help you when you're fighting around objectives, but I think Gathering Storm would be more generally useful. And then for the secondary runes, I suppose you would be looking for the extra damage in either Coup de Grace and Alacrity, or Alacrity and Cut Down. To outweigh this with something like Bone Plating and Overgrowth, I think would be like really, really defensive. It might be okay if you have a matchup in which you're scaling, but this gets more vague for me than I really particularly like know about Quinn top, as I just haven't seen it that much, especially with a rune setup like this. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about that. Again, here's the default rune page that I recommend. I suppose I'd defaultly recommend Cut Down. Coup de Grace, you do have to switch Coup de Grace and Cut Down depending on the matchup. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Quinn top lane runes. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I answer literally all of them. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. And if you're interested in watching me talk or play League of Legends, you can check out my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/SarNelson. It's in the description. Check it out. Come on, man. Like, check it out. It's right there. It's in the description. Check it out, man. Just click it. Click follow. Please? Whatever, man.